Hello, this is Crypto CJ. It's a trade of the day, Friday afternoon Zoom edition, and we've had a better week in crypto. There's been some new legal rulings, some ETFs with Ethereum, which bumped that price up a little bit, and we've had some nice movements in Link, and what was the other one? Can't remember. But a couple of the alts are doing well, so we're treading up a little bit. Bitcoin flirted with 27K for a little while and dropped back down. Let's go to the chart and check it out. Okay, should be my Bitcoin day chart. So this is we're above the range that I've had going since May. Let's get a closer look. Let's see the 4-hour chart. Yeah, here's the move earlier in the week up to 27.4, gave it all back down to 26K again, then came back again, 27.3. So we sort of have a mini range between, say, 27.5 at the higher end that we've bumped into in late August and a couple times in September, and then say down here around 26, 25. But 25 has held a few times, so that seems to be pretty solid support. But are we heading into that fourth quarter of profit that we've been hearing from the talking heads for quite a while? In 2024, we have a halvening coming up. Maybe we're trending up. Not sure, but overall, things looking better for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Let's go to that 4-hour chart. And yeah, almost hit 1700, stopped about 1687, gave a little bit back. A really nice move in the last couple of days for Ethereum. So the two main cryptos, so far so good for the week. We'll see what happens over the weekend and see if we can continue the momentum next week. So I'm not going to say that we're in a bull cycle by any means, but it's good to see this positive activity. You know, it's nice to look at my hodls every week, see that they're going up. I've got your basic Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few alts, so it's nice to see those starting to make some progress. Any comments or questions about the market overall before we look at Altcoin Alert, see if we can find some day trades? Okay, let's go over to Altcoin Alert. And I'm on the altcoin radar look. I'm going to refresh. And my first sort is usually the AA score. And Aave just creeped up pretty close. Mask I was looking at earlier. And quick review, what this number is telling us from Altcoin Alert is Mask has a 79.3% chance to go up 3% or more in the next 48 to 72 hours. That's what it started with. The overall approach on Altcoin Alert, sometimes that's been modified by the powers that be. I usually stick with it. Personally, I'm a day trader. I trade on leverage, usually 10x, sometimes 5x. I'm looking for a 1% move in the charts. I use Altcoin Alert to tell me what's moving or what's potentially about to move. That's why I like it. So let's take a look at Mask and see if we can set something up. And I want to point out a slightly new approach I've been using. Frank, who's on with us today, is a frequent attendee of my Zoom calls and likes the RTI, Relative Trend Index, as opposed to the RSI, the Relative Strength Index. I did a little research on it, and I've decided to incorporate the RTI opposed to the RSI, and I'm going to use this to help me find trends and retraces. It can do both. So this is a slightly new approach for me, and we'll see how it plays out. I've been doing it off and on for a couple of weeks. I like what I see so far. So I still think the super trend and the divergence that I've talked about in months past can be useful, but to be candid, it hasn't been profitable, consistent enough with me to keep talking about it. So I'm going to set those aside. Maybe they'll do better in a bull market. And focus a little bit more on the trend and still, I'm going to use the RTI the way I did the RSI for the look for 1, 2, 3 dips. I'll go over that in some detail in a moment. Let's start on this mask chart. Look at the 5-minute chart to see if we have a 1, 2, 3 dip forming. That would be something like this. See, we have the squeeze, the bubble. 1, 2, 3. Probably would have gotten in right around here. And probably would have endured this little dip, but eventually gotten out. Got my 1% right around here. If you're trading this on spot, I'd probably be looking for some resistance right about here in the recent past, and then you get out maybe with about 1.5% in that scenario. So that's how I look for a place to get out if I'm manually trading. And we have a resistance right here, and I would have used that as a guide for where to get out. A lot of my trading is automated, so I'm looking for that 1%. And so I would have gotten that right about over here, just like I said. So that's a really nice dip sequence. Not perfect, but it's a pretty good example. But we don't have that set up in the moment. These green bands are Bollinger Bands. This is the SMA line. We're towards the top of the Bollinger Bands. It's not where I want to get in on a long. We've also got this supply and demand visible range indicator from Algo. Algo is a paid service, but they also have some free stuff. And I'm using their free visible range to help determine support and resistance on a longer time frame, going back to early yesterday. But so when I don't see what I like, there's a couple things you can do. You can do a price alert, see if it comes back down. You could use this middle value between the two. Would be one place to put a price alert. Right click like this, add an alert. And probably go 2.64. This is an AA score, so I like to use my information sources for my alert names. Click on that, and you're good to go on your price alert. But that's not how I like to trade. I prefer 15-minute chart and indicator alerts. I'm going to show you some new ones on this chart on the 15-minute. So there's a couple ways I'm going to use this RTI. I'm going to try to catch trends that go above the 50. So here's a good example. This RTI goes above the 50 in this circumstance here, and it's coming out of the green zone, which is the low support area. So that's a really good entry. So I would have gotten in right about here. I've picked up my 1% pretty quickly in less than 2 hours. If you stay in longer, you get this dip and then you get a big move up here, over 3%. That's a really good day trade. And it's a really easy alert to set. You right click in the RTI, add an alert. And the first thing that comes up is RTI crossover 50. So this will trigger if you go above the 50 or if you go below it. So there's a few of these options, but that 50 is the first one that's listed. So that's convenient for me. I'm gonna go with once per bar close. That'll leave it on as long as I have this alert. I tend to turn mine off late in the evening. So again, that's gonna be AA score purchase on my notifications. Notify in app, show a pop-up. That's gonna be on my desktop computer. I'm gonna play a sound. I like the 3 notes reverb, and I will create that alert, and now we're good to go. So if it shoots up above the 50 or drops below it, that gives me an alert. Here's another example. It drops right here. Drops below the 50 right about here. So I get in probably right about there, and I barely get my 1%. But if you're looking for something more, say if you wanted to get down to this green bar, which is a reasonable exit, you're not going to make it. It's going to go back up, and you'll be in this trade. You're still in this trade, but I like that 50 crossover. I've been using that sort of as a replacement for the super trend. And then the other thing I like to set will look familiar to you if you've watched some of my Zoom calls before on the RSI. I'm going to create a range. I want I want an alert to go off when it drops below the 80 or shoots above the 20 on this. So here's a good example here where it dropped below the 20 and came back up. And that's going to be similar to my 1, 2, 3 dip scenario. Actually, let's look at that. That happened at 7:15 this morning. And I think we had this dip sequence at about that time. Yeah. So what I like about that is it tends to catch the end or the later parts of a 1, 2, 3 dip on the 5-minute chart. So I know I went over that kind of fast. I look for the dips, the 1, 2, 3 dips on the 5-minute chart. But I set alerts on the 15-minute to let me know when they happen. So that comes up here. I would have gotten in here. And again, a really nice move, well above my 1%. I'm good to go on that. Now, none of these alerts will trigger as frequently as the divergence alerts do, but I think in the long run, these will be better entries. To do an alert on the RSI, like I just described, I'm going to right click here, add the alert. And instead of the crossover, this should look familiar to you. I'm going to click entering a channel, and I'm going to put 80 on the top and 20 on the bottom. On the RSI, I used to use 70 and 30. This one I'm using 80 and 20. And I usually call this my 1, 2, 3 dip pump. And I like a different notification for this one. I'll go with chirpy. So click create. And you'll see the white lines here on that range, defining that range. So right now we're above it. If it dips below on a short, I'd be inclined to take that. And you can also confirm with other indicators. I've got the squeeze momentum here. We've got the the visible range. But if this one dips below, it's hit the top of the range and starts to come down. That's usually a really good entry on a short. So plus, it's Friday afternoon. The volume tends to dip. So shorts are often the better trades, more likely than not, but certainly not all the time. So that's my setup on Mask on the 15-minute chart. Any comments, questions? Hoping to hear from Frank what he thinks of this approach. It's pretty similar to what he's been talking about.
I love it.
All right.
Also, I would add that with this indicator, as opposed to most of the other momentum and oscillator types, most of them are bounded. That is, they go from 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
If you see this will go above 100, which means the momentum is still going and it isn't just artificially blocked or stopped at 100.
Right.
So it's not, we would call it oversold in the past.
Right.
But the momentum was still going on and it stayed oversold for a very long time in a trend.
Especially in a bull market. So
right. And this is showing you that the momentum may still be there and it goes in both directions. So if you put your cursor on there, it shows what is it, 120 horizontally, 140, right?
yeah.
It would normally have been stopped at 100 and it would just kind of flatline at 100.
Yeah.
And it also goes negative.
So yeah, it could go to infinity for all I know.
Me too.
Now I've been intrigued, or I've considered, I was messing around with this, setting an alert here at the 80 to cross above and to catch a big move like this. That's intriguing.
Yes.
But you could get faked out by something like this. But even then, it kind of dips again, then goes. So maybe you do the second move or third. I don't know. But that's, I like this. I see a lot of uses for it. I'm starting with these two for now, but it wouldn't surprise me if I expanded this, especially if we do end up in a bull market. Then I'm going to be more interested in taking things that go above the 80.
You can change the sensitivity, which I haven't really done and played with, to give you some different looks. So
yeah, I looked at that briefly. I haven't done anything with it yet,
yeah,
but definitely wouldn't surprise me if I messed around with it and
Right.
created maybe a second or third layout with some different, some different approaches and different entries in those sensitivities.
And I don't want to take over your whole thing and ruin it, but I did add cumulative delta,
Okay.
which you might consider. And what that does is it looks at volume, but instead of, you see like a big green, red up bar in volume, right? Right, sort of right in the middle of the chart. You see that?
Sorry, I
On
was
your,
about to take a note. What was that
okay,
indicator
well,
called again?
cumulative volume.
It sounds familiar. I might have messed with that before.
So where you see there's a couple of big red, big green volume bars right in the middle of the chart there. You see those?
Are you asking a question or?
Well, I'm just saying you see where they are, right? They're right
Yeah,
there in the
the
middle.
big green ones here.
What
Yeah.
cumulative volume does is it shows you how much of that green bar was really green versus, in other words, buys versus sells. If you're like 1 penny positive, the whole bar is green. But how
Okay.
strong was that? So if you put the cumulative volume right under the volume, and if you want to do it right now, you'll see what I'm talking about, is it shows sort of the split on the volume bar and how much of it was green versus how much of it wasn't green. And same with red.
Mm-hmm.
And how I have been interpreting it is when you see a change in the percentage of the bar from barely green to all green, what it's telling me is somebody's buying like crazy. It's also telling me that the market maker couldn't sell. He didn't have a seller to go on the other side of that trade.
Mm-hmm.
So they're having to do it, and they can't wait till they can flip it around and get out of the mess they're in.
Right.
But you see where there's a big pump, you'll see several of those green bars, and you'll see that where they start to lose the green dominance and it starts to be less green. And then when it gets to the top, you'll see the first red start to show up.
Yeah. I think I will look at that over the weekend or early next week, and if I like what I see with it, I don't usually bring a new indicator on until I've had some time with it, but I've made a note of that and I will look at it. It sounds interesting. All right. Any other questions on Mask and this new and improved, I hope, approach with the RTI? Okay, let's look at another altcoin alert option. That was an AA score. Let's look at another sort that I like is social activity. So I've got fire on social activity and trading activity. I like that. IOST, that's kind of a OG token. Storage, I've been trading lately. A big move up today. It crushed me on a short last week. Ugh. But, let's look at well, let's look at storage. I know that's going to move. Just have to be careful on shorts with this one in the recently. Yeah, I think I tried to short it around here and I got caught in this. All right, let's take a quick look at the 5-minute, and it's just kind of pumping. So got some squeezy Bollinger Bands here. Yeah, less than 2%, and it's sitting on the SMA line. That's one of my least favorite places to get in. If you, I may have blown your mind if you're new with this, with some of the new indicator stuff, especially the RTI, which we haven't talked about that much. We just started talking about that a few weeks ago. If you're not ready for that, an easier way to do this is to just look at where do you see support. I mean, it's kind of hanging around here in this range. Let me draw a range real quick. About here to here. Bring that up a little bit. It's an art more than a science. So if it drops in this vicinity, say the middle or the bottom of this range, that might be a good place to get in. You've got the midline here. If you want to use that, the Lux Algo indicator, just put your alert there. Or you can just use the green line, you know, got the support clearly defined right here. Going back to early in the wee hours of the morning, right at 40 cents. You know, just put an alert on 40 cents. See if it comes back down. Might be a good place to get in on a long if you're trading spot, or even if you're trading on leverage. You don't want to deal with indicators. All right. Let me get rid of that. Let's go over to the RTI and see what we can find. So we've got a lot of moves above the 50 that all would have been profitable. Going back to Wednesday afternoon, you know, they would have caught this move here. All of these would have been profitable. You got another one here. Let me use my horizontal line. That'll make it a little easier to see. So here we cross above the 50. And we get in here and we catch that move. We get another cross. Actually, that's the last cross above the 50. That occurred, you know, Thursday afternoon, late afternoon. As far as dips below the 80, these were close. We got this one here, and all these would have been fake outs. So this is probably the downside of this, at least on the short side. We have a couple dips below the 80 that would not have been profitable. This one here, you would have caught that move up, probably either been stopped out or liquidated. Another one here goes down a little bit, but then shoots back up. So it doesn't look good on the shorts, looks good on the longs. As far as the 80 and the 20 approach. And the dips below the 50 may have worked out with some additional purchases. Got this dip here below the 50. Goes down a little bit, pretty big move up. And then with some additional purchases, you would have gotten out, had a pretty good dollar cost average situation. But that would have ended about here. Yeah, that might have worked. This dip here below the 50. Yeah, I would have got my 1% and been out, but I don't know, a little tricky on something that's moving this well. You just might want to see, I'm starting to be a little more trend based and wait till I see a pronounced move down on something that's been pumping before I short it. Been burned on a few shorts this summer, not waiting long enough. So okay, any questions on storage? We'll look at one more sort. Let's see, that was the social activity. I select this long-term sentiment. And let's look for a short. So you can sort this not only for bullish, but for bearish. And I've got bleeding red here on a H bar. Let's check that out. Now, if you're looking to short something, you have to be on an exchange that allows leverage. I know the Bing X exchange. I trade on that off and on. Does pretty well. I can't really vouch for its, if it's going to stick around a long time. So if you do trade on it, go small. And if you're not an experienced trader, you probably shouldn't trade leverage. If you are experienced in spot and you're ready to move up, then start small, maybe 2x, 3x, that kind of thing. Okay, on H bar, we're going to look for a short. And don't really have a good entry at the moment. It's in, you don't want to short down here at support. That's the worst possible place to get in. So I don't like that at all. I do see some resistance here. We want to flip this around. Instead of buying along at support, we want to buy resistance or we want to buy a short at resistance. So I'm seeing that right around here at is that 5 cents? 4.495, right around here, 0.499. So you could put your price alert there if you want to go that route. On the 15-minute chart with our RTI, let me go with my horizontal line. Okay, on our 50 cross on a long, that happens here. Coming out of the green, that's a good entry. And yeah, I get my 1% right about here, maybe in 11 hours. Takes a while, not ideal, but not bad. Across down here, kind of in no man's land. It's too close to support. I probably wouldn't have taken that trade. Another cross down here, same situation. Probably would have passed on that. Cross up here, would have been more interested coming out of the green. So I probably would have taken that one. And I'm assuming that the ranges are the same. They actually change if I go back, but yeah, 1%. Maybe I don't get that right away. I might have to wait till this move here in 17 hours. So that's looking at the 50 line. On the 80-20 line, we get a drop here coming out of the red. And that triggers right about here. And so, yeah, this is just making 1% moves, a couple a day. I like that. Here's another dip below. I don't know, too close to support. Again, pretty close to support, kind of in the mid-range, no man's land. Not sure if I would have taken any of these. A lot of these this isn't a real good use of the RTI because a lot of them are hovering around this middle area. So there would have been a lot of alerts triggering. So it's not the best example of how this tool works. Works better when the market's doing some of this action in a little bit bigger movements than what we're seeing here. Because right now, I think these Bollinger Bands are only, yeah, they're not even 1%. So I might have looked at this and just not even taken any of these and moved on to a different coin, but that's easy to say in retrospect. Okay, any questions on H-bar? All right, well, that's about all I have today for Altcoin Alert. We do have, Craig and I were talking about something ahead of, or before the recording started, and he wanted to show us something on Bybit. A lot of us trade on Bybit. We use a VPN and a digital ID from the island nation of Palau, which will pass KYC on certain foreign exchanges. If you're new to trading, and you're in the U.S., Binance is fine, or not Binance, but Coinbase. I trade on Coinbase from time to time for spot trading. But if you want to do some more higher leverage stuff in your experience, then I do recommend getting on Bybit if you can. It's been my favorite exchange of all the ones I've worked with. I liked Binance a couple years ago, but it got weird and it's in trouble. So it wouldn't surprise me if Bybit surged ahead of Binance. But anyway, Craig, are you out there and you want to discuss this matter, or maybe leave that for a different time? Or have you left us? Well, he had his chance, so maybe we'll do this on a different Zoom at a different time. But I had a pretty nice introduction there. Now he's not here for it. All right. Well, I'll wrap it up here then, and then we'll talk about Bybit some other time. If you're watching on the recording, thanks for doing that. Hope to see you live next time. If you are a Carbon member, you'll need to exit this Zoom and join me again in about 20 minutes, and we'll talk all things Carbon. See you guys. Have a good weekend.